goal of this podcast is to help you break in and thrive in advertising and marketing, and heck, maybe to help you become a CEO of your own. Welcome back to Breaking and Entering Brand Side. This is a segment where we interview the best folks who are working in creative communications directly for businesses. No, not agencies, although we love agency folks too. That's why we've interviewed 200 plus of them. But today we learned from Gertrude Allen. She is the CEO of Lola Dating, a new dating app aimed at addressing the common issues found in existing dating platforms, such as swiping fatigue and ineffective communication. So what makes Lola different, this app different from the other competitors? Well, they have this unique calendar system for scheduling dates and a feedback mechanism to improve matches over time. She'll talk all about that, and I have plenty of questions. But this episode covers Gertrude's extensive career from her beginnings in journalism and PR to leadership roles in various industries, and it takes us back to where she's at today, which is Lola Dating. And for the entrepreneurs out there that got that spark in them, we talk about the marketing strategies for launching Lola, which is currently a startup, which should be launching by the time you hear this in Boston. We talk about the demographics and their approach to launching this bad boy up. And you're going to want to connect with Gertrude and to download this app. So you can do all that. You can find out more by connecting with her directly on LinkedIn. If you don't hear a response back, connect with me, leave this podcast 5 stars, and write a nice little written review on Apple Podcasts. And I will do my best personally to connect you with her or any of our past guests. Now on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Brand Side podcast. And as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. All right, Gertrude Allen, welcome to the Breaking and Entering. We're calling this the Brand Side podcast. I interview a lot of agency professionals, which I know you have some in your back. That's what you have in your background as well. But the goal of this is to talk to people on the brand side, and you are a CEO. And I don't know if we've had very many CEOs on this podcast. So Gertrude, welcome. Excited to get to know you. How are you doing today?
Doing well, Gino. Thank you for having me on the show.
I see you're in, it's got to be New York, right?
That's correct. New York
Great city. Great city. Where are you at right now within New York?
Well, I live in Long Island City, Queens, on the East River, facing Manhattan, the east side of Manhattan. And I commute up to Boston a couple of times a month for my current job with Lola Dating.
Lola Dating. What is that? I can't wait to talk about this because I might be in the market, you know.
Yep.
Who knows when we post this if things change, but tell me all about Lola.
So Lola Dating is a new dating app being spun out of Boston Venture Studio, which is a venture studio run by Paul English, a co-founder of Kayak, the travel site. And Lola Dating is unique in that it solves some of the pain points that people have with the current dating apps on the market, which are swiping fatigue, chatting fatigue, just kind of getting into these endless loops of, not going anywhere with the conversation and then sometimes getting ghosted or worse, catfished, and just winds up being a very unpleasant experience for a lot of people. I don't know what your experience is so far with some of the existing apps. Is that familiar?
Yeah.
It's not really fun for most people. So what we do...
People delete it and they come back on later, or they get fatigued, or... Yeah.
It just goes on and on. So, and we're trying to solve that very, very, head on by 2 things. One, when you log on to Lola, there's a calendar feature. It has you tell the app what days that week you're available to go out on a date. And then it only matches you with people that have similar preferences, that you indicate you're interested in, and there's mutual interest, but you're available the same night of the week. So you can only be matched with one person per day. And then that takes you into a chat room and you can chat with the person. But the purpose of chatting at that point is to decide on the time and the place where you want to meet.
Genius. Because the apps, and like my friends, all my friends are on it. This is going to be a fun episode. Because yes, the problem is like people lounged around too much in the chat and they can either risk it or they can say something or it dies out. You're waiting for really the strategy that my friends use and they tell me and I hear people talk about is get in the chat and get a date lined up and then get out of there. Get the number, get a date lined up and get out of there. You should focus the conversation when you get to the date and like maybe
Correct.
a little bit here and there, make sure they're normal. They're not a serial killer, stuff like that. And then once you get to the date, then you can start building the relationship. Is that kind of like the theory?
It is. And this is just a forcing function. You can set, you could call it, because it takes away the need for one person to make the first move. It's already agreed that you're going out that day. That's why we matched you for that day. If when you're in the chat, you get like, a bad vibe and you change your mind, you can unmatch. There's no obligation. But if you unmatch, then anybody else who might have been interested in you, that you were interested in and are available that day, they would come up next. So you can only be in a chat with one person per night, but you don't have to go out with that person. We hope most people will find, it worth their while to go out, but there's obviously some, there's optionality there. The other thing that's really unique about Lola is once you've gone on a date with somebody, when you go back on the app will ask you, how was your date? And rate your date 1 through 5 hearts. And if you rate the date 1 heart, we'll actually ask you like what went wrong, because we are going to try to screen out people who are just they don't have good intentions and they're
good
not
intentions, or maybe their pictures don't match the profile.
Like things that are more egregious,
outdated.
Right? Things like catfishing. I felt unsafe, like I was harassed. I mean, obviously we'll look.
So will you boot them out?
We will eventually remove them from the platform if they don't adhere to like certain basic values. But if it's 2 to 5 hearts, we'll ask you, what did you like? And it'll be a multiple choice. And what did you not like? Also multiple choice. So really easy to answer. 3 adjectives that describe what you liked about the person and up to 3 negatives. You don't have to put any negatives. What that does, it's only for the app to, the app, like the algorithm, that information gets fed into the algorithm. And then there's machine learning that goes on. It only ever gets seen by the app itself, not by either party. We don't share.
I would like to see my reviews.
Well, you can at one point, but I'll get to that. The initial feedback is really for the app to get smarter about what you are enjoying and not enjoying about people that you're meeting on the app. And it will make the algorithm work harder for you, because right now the apps out there, you are describing yourself to the community, but there's no like third party validation, right? There's no one who's coming in and saying, yeah, that guy really is nice and he really is funny, or that gal really is, sophisticated, or whatever the word is. This will be a way for for people on the app to basically share their thoughts and feelings about the other people on the app, but in a really discreet, private way, because it'll never be revealed unless after the 5th date, we will have a feature. There's a feature that will be available that will allow you to secure a dating scorecard about yourself.
No
and
way.
It's an option. It's not, mandatory, but it'll be sort of something you can decide to do or not. But that information will only be shared with you, and it'll be random. Like all the feedback will be randomized and it'll be anonymous. So you'll never know from the last 5 dates who said what.
Oh, got it. So you go on 5 dates, it could be with 5 different people. And
Exactly.
you're going to get like a little bit of verbatims or a score, or some sort of feedback from the 5 dates.
Right.
It's maybe an aggregate of some sort.
Right.
Yes.
But you get a sense of like pattern recognition of like, what am I doing that people love me? What am I doing that might be annoying people? And I'm not even aware of it.
But my one question is, if the date goes well and you plan a second date offline, like, will people not? I feel like people won't give good feedback because they'll be off the app.
Well, it only is for the first date, right? Like after it's only you come back on the app and you would rate your date. Now, if you're saying the date went so incredibly well, you have no reason to ever open up the app again. Well, that's good news, right? You both hopefully are then paired up and you're off the app and like say la vie, and we're very happy that, but we just don't know if it'll happen that quickly. It'll probably your dates to find Mr. Right or Mrs. Right.
Yeah,
So
but you won't. Do you imagine that they'll schedule the second? They won't schedule the second date with the same person on the app. They'll
no,
already
they
have the
won't.
number.
No, that we expect. In fact, the way it works is that when you get back on the app, you rate your date, you give us the feedback. You can only, there's no more chatting with the person you already went on the date with. The only interaction you can have with that person on our app will be to share your contact info. In the event you may have somehow forgotten to give out your
Sure.
phone number at the end of the day, like it just happens sometimes. So you'll have the ability to do that, but there's no more chatting with that person because we assume by then
Yeah,
we
that
can do
makes
that offline. Yeah.
Thursday is going to be the most anticipated. I think that's my prediction. Thursdays are the most common days of the
Thursdays.
week.
Yeah.
Do you
That's
guys?
the
Do
day
you
that
guys?
well, we're doing events in Boston to get the word out. And that is the day that we tend to do our events. And it is the most, it's when people like to go out, especially when it's something that's not as committed. It's like in a singles event or like you said, a first date. You're probably saving the weekend for like your close family and
Yeah,
friends.
you don't want to mess that up. You only get
Yeah.
so many weekend days.
Yeah.
Sundays aren't bad either, but
Yeah.
this is interesting. So tell me about the marketing. You're the CEO,
Yeah.
and this is not live yet. You're saying like people are on a wait list right now. You're
We're on
doing
the wait
events.
list.
When's the launch?
Well, we'll probably let people off the wait list, probably in waves. We're just figuring that out right now. But like kind of based on where we have concentration of similar demographics. So like age, other criteria, like the distance you want to travel so that
You
you
can
have the
actually
best
have
session.
something.
Yeah, like a large enough pool of people that you can actually interact with. And so probably start doing that sometime this spring, within the next month or so. I would think we're going to start taking people off the wait list and then get some real world feedback, be able to tweak things about the product, the user experience, that kind of thing.
Who's the target demographic for this?
So it is kind of the bullseye is 25 to 34. That is the group that uses dating apps the most in the US. We are starting it a little older than maybe other dating apps out there, just because we feel the solution that we're providing is for busy people, like people who have like their career is like kind of in, full swing and time is really like limited. And, it just, people kind of start multitasking, at that stage of life, trying to get a lot of different things accomplished. And so like being able to like just streamline the scheduling process, we think is going to be huge. We do have as a secondary audience, 35 to 44. That's really interesting, that group. It's smaller in numbers, but it's really a very high quality group for us because those are people who are kind of getting like a sense of urgency about finding a partner and wanting to settle down.
Yeah,
or
showtime.
have had a shorter, marriage the first time around and they're looking for a second round, sort of a second try at that. And if they have kids, young kids, then scheduling again becomes really difficult. And then we, of course, have our oldest audience would be 45 plus. And that's also an interesting group because that group, we find like their social circles start to shrink, over time. So it's just helpful for them to have a way to meet new people on the app. So the only audience that we're not like, we welcome any adult to our app, but we're not targeting less than 25 because that kind of demo, we just feel like have a lot of different options right now for meeting new people.
Wow. I'm impressed. I'm excited. How do you launch this thing? Like, what's the marketing look like? This is what we're doing here. This is, we want to learn how to break into marketing. I know, and there's so much to talk about, Gertrude, and I this could be a 4-hour episode. So I kind of want to kind of leave this open to you. What I want to know now is how do you launch something like this?
Right.
Like what goes into the marketing? And then I want to understand your background too and your advice.
Sure.
So maybe we tailor the advice within, sprinkle it in. But really, I want to get right now into how do you launch something like this? Are there agencies involved? Are you the marketing officer as well?
Yeah.
Run me through the process. How long does this start?
Yeah. It's a classic startup, so we have only a handful of people that are involved with, building the product, getting it out to market, scaling it. So my role, I'm a marketing led CEO. So like I spend most of my time, honestly, marketing the app. And that is like, we use a full funnel approach. So it kind of just very difficult today, especially with something brand new like this, to just assume one channel or, two channels are going to like deliver all of your results. It's really, you're trying to create a flywheel by using multiple channels, right? Now, not every channel, because, for some things where it's just too early, like out of home, for example, too early, like it'll be great, but we need to be much bigger. We need to have, scaled quite a bit. We need to have, the matching for sure needs to have like started for that to really like permeate. But there's so many other things that we are doing that are important. And it's really the combination. It's never just one thing. So like Meta, of course, we're being very targeted on that Meta with, Instagram ads, and of course using influencers as well to help us create content and to, either push the content out through our channel or their channel, and that's great. And that delivers really great results. It's expensive because we have to really geofence to make sure we're just, addressing the Boston market right now.
Well, just Boston right now.
Yeah.
What's the next one after that? New York?
Expensive. Next would be New York. Yeah. But the thing is, like, that alone would be very expensive if we weren't doing a lot of other things, right? So, we will do events, we do field marketing. So like, St. Patrick's Day yesterday, very big deal in Boston, very big Irish population, Irish American. So we were invited to be part of one of the really cool floats in the parade. We had a big banner on the float. We had a gal who was wearing a dress, designed for Lola that was beautiful, that she was dancing and like totally into it. Sure. And of course, it got picked up all over social. And the thought is like, people will see Lola. They won't necessarily know what it is, although their tagline says date more, chat less. We have a huge QR code.
Date more, chat less. Why is it called Lola?
Love language. Yeah. Stands for love language. And, we have the URL and the IG handle. And so that's kind of getting in front of, almost, we estimate like 1 million people. The thought then is when they're online this week and they're following their social media, they see a lot of organic mentions about Lola. And then if they get hit with an ad, they know, right, that ad should resonate a lot more than if they've never heard of Lola before, right? Because the ad, on an Instagram ad, it can only do so much, right? It's like, these ads are super, concise, brief, like you can only describe so much in that kind of a performance ad. So it's really reinforcing it with everything in the offline world. And then the same would be true of like PR. We've gotten a lot of great PR this weekend. Founders were interviewed on a couple of different podcasts, and
now you're being interviewed on a podcast.
No, I'm being interviewed on this podcast. But again, it's just like, and we literally hear from people who sign up for Lola. I heard the founder talk, all about why he started Lola on NPR. WGBH in Boston. And I turned on the news and I saw a story on Channel 5 News, which is the ABC affiliate. I opened up, the Boston Globe does a newsletter aimed at young people called B-Side. I read about, that was like a roundup of the newer dating apps in Boston. I saw you guys there. We're doing a partnership with Pliables in Boston this week. So we're got pop-up events happening at, a couple of the Pliables locations.
What is that, Pilates?
No, Pliables is a restaurant, fast casual.
Why did I think it was Pilates?
It's a great place, like, especially for young people. It's acai bowls. There's a few hundred restaurants.
Pliables.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying like pliable, like you can bend.
Well, no, not pliable, Pliables. Yeah.
Gotcha.
We have ambassadors there in a couple of the locations in Boston today and tomorrow, telling people about Lola. If they download the app, they get $5 off their.
Where's the app? Or what's the Instagram? Is that up?
Yeah, it's Lola_D.
Interesting. So you got a little bit of brand ambassadors, you got targeted ads, you got organic, you got PR. Yeah. You really got to look at the peso, paid earned, shared own. You got to look at the funnel. Exactly. You're really doing the thing. You're really doing
it's really important to do all of it. Like, look, are we doing it, to the fullest extent and to the best, like the highest quality? Definitely not. I look at it all as
content on here too.
Yeah. We look at it as MVP, like what's the minimum viable product to get this done? Like the parade was an experiment. Like we didn't spend weeks planning it. We spent, a couple of days planning it. And and these partnerships, like we're going to test and learn. We're going to quickly know which ones work and which ones don't. We've done the dating game. We've like kind of created our own version of the 70s television show. And that's been really fun. We've done that in like a large venue. We've done that in private clubs. And it's like a way to help shine a spotlight on how important it is just to meet in person. Even if you don't like see the person, if you just hear their voice, which is how the dating game works, you're going to be more likely to connect with somebody. And we've actually had, some budding romances just from that game.
Nice.
But it's trying to be, where your consumer is. And like, you want to show up and you want to be authentic, real, you want to build credibility, and you can't just do that through performance marketing.
No. Interesting. Do you think starting off with the 25 to 35 demographic and going all in on the marketing to that demographic is the right strategy? Because then, like, why not go with the older demographic first? Do you want to make it seem like cool and approachable? Can you kind of walk me through like the targeting effort and like why there's a primary and why there's a secondary?
And your question was why go with 25 versus 35?
Yeah. You said the range. What's the primary range once again?
25 to 34. And
right.
Then
so that would be the primary.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the secondary?
35 to 44.
Yeah. So why the primary at that age and not
because I think it's more aspirational when if we are able to saturate that market, right, and really get those people to buy in, then I think it's actually like appealing for an older person because they see like, oh, that's where, and we're not talking kids. We're just saying, people that are more, younger trendsetters, they kind of have a finger on the pulse. And that's a cool thing. Now, they'll obviously want to date likely within their own, kind of age group, but it's already like a cool thing. I think the risk you run of starting older and trying to work your way down is it just might get like labeled as something just like, people having like a second marriage or, we just wanted to make, it like feel more ubiquitous and then just try to catch people on either end.
I totally agree. I just wanted to make sure like that was the same thought process.
Yeah.
Why Boston? Is that because that's where the venture is at and that's where you guys
Boston Venture Studio is located there. So that's where Paul English is based. As I mentioned, co-founded Kayak years ago, did really well, sold it for a lot of money. It was sold to Priceline for almost $2 billion.
There we go.
And out of that, he's launched several other companies and sold them. Boston Venture Studio is on pace to launch about 2 consumer tech products a year. And so this is, one of the 2 that is being launched currently. The other one is called Dietz, and it's in the travel industry.
Okay. We won't talk about that.
Yeah.
Great. So how did you get involved with this? I think we covered it. I mean, there's so many questions to understand the marketing. I want to get to how did you get here, like as the CEO, and we can kick it back and talk high level and kind of work our way back to how you got here, if that's okay.
Yeah. I was recruited by actually the CEO of the other company I just mentioned, who was helping the BVS team search for a CEO for Lola Dating. He knew of me from the pet industry, which is where I just spent 7 years.
The pet industry.
Yes. I had been CEO of Pet Plate, a human grade dog food brand.
Got it.
Primarily,
why would they want to hire somebody from Pet Plate to run a
really
dating
what
app?
They were looking for was somebody who has experience and the desire and the grit really to like create a brand from nothing. Like literally, like, Lola was a logo on a piece of paper when I joined. The website was up, but it wasn't in the app store yet. No one, had really heard of it except for, people close to BVS. And like, how do you then take that and create like a brand that has a life of its own, really? And then just to attract, hundreds and thousands and then millions of people. And we did that with Pet Plate, right? When I joined Pet Plate, it was nascent. It was just a proof of concept stage in New York City. And I joined the founder of that company and helped him really put the brand on the map and create a following and scale the business. And, eventually was able to turn the reins back over to the founder of Pet Plate, and that gave me an opportunity to try something new. And was quite happy to work in consumer tech. I've been in the, CPG, consumer packaged goods, for a very long time. And I was curious about, what it would be like to market an app, right, versus a physical product.
Yeah. Can you talk about like the big differences in between CPG versus like marketing an app?
Yeah. Well, the big fundamental difference, of course, is the supply chain, right? Like there is no supply chain issue with
Yeah. Yeah.
with it. There's like massive supply chain challenges with the product, especially food, and especially post COVID. During and after, um, things got really tough, supply chain wise, and then margin, right? Like everything so much energy is spent just trying to like eke out, any little bit of margin on a
Ring it out.
CPG
Yeah.
product. Whereas in an app, it's a scalable platform. It's really about getting the volume of people involved and making sure that they'll pay. But like margin really isn't an issue. Like you can have huge margins as
Oh, yeah.
long as you have paying customers.
We didn't talk about the pay model, like the revenue model for Lola. Is it subscribe,
It
pay to
will be a
play?
subscription. It right now it is free. If you sign up before we start matching, it'll be, with anybody who signs up early, like gets in before we start matching,
Yeah.
they
Like
will not pay.
grandfathered in.
Yeah, for this year. But then we will turn subscription fees on. It'll be nominal. It won't be like, it'll be very cost competitive. But it'll be a way for us to kind of offer a lot of options on the app versus like being kind of the freemium model is like, yeah, it's free, but the minute you try to do anything, you have to start paying.
Right.
Our thinking today, and this could change over time, but like right now, it's like, let's just create a subscription where you pretty much use the whole app. And then if you want special features turned on that kind of go above and beyond the normal, like getting the dating scorecard, or we have a really interesting gifting option. Yeah, things like that, you'll obviously pay for separately, but we just wanted to have kind of more of a level playing field. So that is why we're planning for it to be a subscription model. But again, we need to get a lot more scale before we turn that on.
I was listening to my friend's podcast and they were talking about dating apps, and one of the co-hosts was just like, yeah, you gotta pay. Like the free model of any of the other dating apps just usually is tough unless you're super, you're an outlier.
Right.
And you're going to struggle. And, they say they're designed to be deleted. Some of these other apps.
Yeah.
And they're, I think that's incorrect in some of the cases. Like our take is you got to pay. And a lot of people do that. And yeah, I think just going right off the bat, like this thing is effective. We have a formula and we care about you. So you're going to have to like, a little bit of a payment. That kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah.
If it's a quality offer.
Exactly.
Especially with your target demographic being 25 to 35. You said they're more established.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense too.
Exactly.
Got it. And then you can do like a year, save some money potentially.
That's it. Yeah, that's what we're thinking. I mean, we can even have it as short as a week, since you could have a benefit like within the week.
Yeah.
Have that be like a little more expensive. And then if you commit to the one, the price goes down. If you commit to the year, that goes further. Yeah.
And then there's some other exemplar.
Yeah.
Got it. And so then and you were just talking about the
transition.
The transition. I guess. I think even like we can skip to like how you first broke into all of this stuff, because you weren't always a CEO,
right?
Right. We don't just graduate school and become CEOs. That'd be nice. Some people do because they start their own thing. But where did you go to school? What did you study? And what was your first job out of college?
I went to NYU. I was a journalism major, specialized in PR. Right out of college, worked for McGraw-Hill, large publishing company, but that was only like for a year. And then I moved over to PR full time. I joined an agency, a really strong boutique agency, still really strong today, called Nike Communications, luxury PR. And
I know Nike.
The agency?
Yeah. I've heard of them. I not to be confused with
the sneaker brand.
Right. No, but I know Nike Communications. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really strong brand. Nina Kemner founded it. It's, I think, about 40 years old now in New York, and she's in office now in Beverly Hills. And
nice.
that one's great because PR, and it introduced me to European brands that were being Nike was essentially launching and marketing here in the US. And kind of by way of that, I got introduced to an agency in Germany. So I moved over to Germany pretty early in my career, worked for the largest German integrated marketing communications company.
Dentsu?
Yes, it was sort of a JV with Dentsu.
Okay.
German agency was called HF&P, but it was a Dentsu JV. Did that for a few years, and then I was recruited by GCI. Gray, GCI has sort of been merged into other companies since then, but that was the PR agency of Gray Global Group. So worked for Gray over there.
Oh, you were in Germany for a while.
Yeah.
6 years?
6 years, yeah. And worked in there, like, the headquarters in Germany was like their middle European headquarters. And then I was recruited back to the US by Hill & Knowlton.
Gotcha. So you're saying, it says here VP Marketing and Development. Were you doing growth? What were you kind of an account lead for the agency for clients, or were you working more so in the brand of the agency?
Brand of the agency.
That's what I'm doing.
That's what you're doing now?
You have a very similar
background. I saw that in your LinkedIn. I was going to ask you a bit about that.
Yes, from PR to marketing the agency.
Correct.
So where am I going to go next? Then I'm going to be a managing director. You're at Hill & Knowlton. I'm just going to follow your career path.
Related, although
I don't want to do that.
But I was working directly with the global chairman, Howard Pastor. He's passed away, but he had been the head of legislative affairs under Clinton.
Wow.
Then he ran Hill & Knowlton, and I was working with him on special projects, and I worked with Paul Tafe, who was the CEO of Hill & Knowlton. So while I was definitely on the client management side. I was doing very strategic projects for the company. And then from there, I wanted to work in-house because I was getting to that level.
Here it is.
At the agency where I was getting very far removed from the actual work. And I was, doing a lot of new business development, which I enjoyed, but I kind of missed having my hands in the actual work. So
some skin in the game.
Yeah. So then I was recruited to work for a company overseas in London, a venture-backed company called Global Name Registry. It was in the internet domain industry.
Yeah.
And helped stood up their marketing department and hired some agencies, actually one in Boston, Digitas.
Yeah.
Great. That was very early days of performance marketing. But knew Digitas from an experience I had at Hill & Knowlton. We launched UPromise, and the founder of UPromise had previously founded Digitas, a guy named Michael Bronner. So really well-known direct marketing guru. Anyway, then from that experience working in-house in London, came back to New York, and I worked in-house at Tasty Delight, a chain of better for you frozen dessert, ice cream parlors.
Nice.
We grew the company a lot. We tripled the size of the business and then sold it to private equity. And that was where I got exposure to the world of private equity. And then I got asked by a couple of the larger VC companies, actually European based, that were looking to, either acquire or invest in businesses in the US, to advise them. And I did so not just on their investments, but also on some of their looked at deal flow opportunities, but also then advise them, the portfolio companies themselves, once they got money,
right,
to spend on marketing, how do you spend that wisely and help them do rebrands and things of that nature.
Yes, that's so interesting.
Interesting,
yeah,
right?
because because for the listeners out there new, a lot of these small agencies or small companies they will get big, and then they will get bought by a private equity company. And then the private equity company will have a marketing lead, basically a transformation, they sometimes call it too, right, Gertrude?
Right.
And then you will then be ingrained in whatever they acquire to make sure that the flows and the scale is there. And you kind of set up these new processes, you audit them. It's supposed to be pretty stressful, I'm assuming. I mean, kind of getting in there under the hood,
Yeah.
restructuring, making sure everything's gonna be set.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure because they just received
Yeah.
a large amount of capital, and now they have to make it work.
Right.
And so I found that really interesting. But eventually, I landed a job inside of a VC. So worked full time at a company called Brand Project, early stage consumer venture capital fund headquartered in Toronto, and I was essentially put in charge of the New York office and helped them look at deals all across the U.S. And that one of the first deals I worked on and kind of led the transaction was for Pet Plate, the direct to
Yep.
consumer human grade pet food company. Um, so I worked first as like an advisor, just as, because we put money in and then we were just advising the founder. And then eventually I was asked to join the company full time as CEO to help him scale the company. So I would have been like the first, employee, so to speak, of Pet Plate. And then we scaled it like crazy and hired a lot of people. And, I always ran marketing there. We never had a CMO. So
Yep.
it was great. In performance marketing, again, this was, 2000 and I want to say, what year was that? Around 2016, 17. So, performance marketing was certainly like becoming more sophisticated, but, still early days. And so there was still, there was a lot of white space on Facebook and, Instagram wasn't even that big yet. So I saw a lot there and learned a lot and had taken it with me and have been applying it to the things we're doing at Lola Dating. Some of the things are, some of the tactics are similar and then there's some tactics that are just different by virtue of the fact that, it is a service at Lola Dating and not, a product that, in the case of Pet Plate was a subscription service. We would sell the box would come to your door on a regular basis. So there was all the metrics involved with subscription commerce, which again, once we are matching with Lola, there'll be some similarities there, right? Because we hope to sell a subscription as well. But they're different types of subscriptions. But there's a lot of, it's interesting how much overlap there is in just within that like marketing space. I would say the operations are vastly different, but the marketing is less different.
Yeah, you can pull some of those principles that apply. Yeah. Well, I'm pumped. I think this is super informative. And even just you going rapid fire through your career, starting at McGraw-Hill, getting into PR, going up the ladder within the agency world, switching into brand side and then private equity. Did I get that right?
Right. Yeah. And then back to working at the senior, management level in order to really help these smaller companies grow.
And I guess there's no looking back to agency life now.
Nah, not true.
Okay.
Not
Gotcha.
true. Like I'm
But you would have to be like the CMO of the agency potentially, like something like.
Yeah. I'm in touch with my friends from the agency world. Like I've never stopped talking to and hanging.
Right. Or you might have to hire them to help with some branding.
Yeah. That's one of the ways I source help. And, you asked about Lola, like we are, at different stages of a company's growth cycle, you're either outsourcing the marketing or you're, in-housing it. We're at the stage being so new that we're outsourcing it and we're working with, boutique agencies. So a growth marketing agency, organic social.
I can really tap into the specific verticals that you need to grow within the marketing funnel. But wouldn't it be easier to go to one agency that can do it all?
Not at this stage because our budgets aren't so big yet. And,
you save money by going to different shops?
We do. It's more specialized and more focused. And we're doing more work on our end because it isn't one-stop shopping. Like I have to, kind of interact and like guide every agency individually. I do sometimes have the agencies talk. And sometimes there's some, crossover there. Mm-hmm. As you scale and you get bigger and you need all those things, then there's like an agency that can handle all of it under one roof. Obviously, like that is ideal because it becomes, more holistic probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm in touch with my agency friends because I don't know when I'm maybe going to need their help. Or just in general, like to stay abreast of all the current trends.
Yeah. Quick projects, maybe eventually.
Yeah. And I just in general, I've always enjoyed, And the more time I spend on the brand side, the more valuable I think I might become to the agency world.
Enough said. Perfect. Gertrude, amazing interview. How can people find more about Lola? And if they want to connect with you and talk with you about your career or questions about all the stuff we covered, which is a lot.
For
So I
sure.
appreciate it.
So for Lola, I would say go to the App Store or Google Play and download Lola Dating. If you want to learn more about the app and the business, you can go to lola.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Lola_dates. And the best way to reach me probably is LinkedIn, Gertrude Allen.
Perfect.
I'm you there.
Well, amazing episode. And yeah, I hope people reach out. And thank you so much for sharing everything about Lola and your
Thank you very
story.
much. It was a real pleasure speaking with you tonight.
All right. Perfect.